Mr. Oliver Sloup. He's with Blue Line Futures in Chicago. Oliver, thanks for being on. All right, brother. Um, what say you? I'd like to hear what you think. The last few days have been tough. Today was a little bit better, obviously, but is this just a bounce and we continue on? Tell me, we got something cooking here.
Yeah, the last couple days have been just really tough sledding for the agricultural markets as a whole, not just the grains, but the livestock as well, which we'll cover in the next segment. But yeah, finding some relief in the overnight trade, which is encouraging to see. What's not so encouraging is the fact that we're giving up some of that strength that we saw in the overnight trade that came on lighter volume. So, it's just kind of a ho-hum day. You would have liked to see a little bit more follow through. That 412 to 413 level for December corn has kind of been a pivot pocket on our radar through this week's trade. That was the low from the quarterly stocks report and then the eventual breakdown point. If we can get back out above there, potentially we can spur some additional short covering and tack on another, 5 to 10 cents or so. But I think the upward rallies are probably going to be somewhat limited at this point now. Obviously, we've got a USDA report tomorrow. I'm not so sure that that's going to be enough to really move the needle in any direction. And looking at the options market and the volatility, I think that market would concur. There's just not a lot of not a lot going on in either direction here. Kind of like watching paint dry for corn. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a sideways consolidated trade. Soybeans, on the other hand, obviously they've gotten taken to the woodshed a lot harder here this week, trading about 65, 75 cents off of the recent highs. And we're kind of getting that overall sentiment in the market where it just seems like we're never going to be able to rally again, right? And what's the catalyst that can do that? Well, we saw a flash sale to China yesterday for new crop. That was good to see, but we need to see more of that. But it's kind of reminiscent to what we saw in February when we were at the lows, where it just seemed like we're never going to rally again. And then one day we just start moving north. Will that day be sooner rather than later? To be determined. I think the election's still going to be a big headwind over this market to come.
Could be. You're right. All right, great stuff. Thanks for all of that. Stay right there, though. We're going to go away. We need to pay some bills. We're going to come back and talk more with Oliver Sloup. He's with Blue Line Futures in Chicago. We'll be right back right after this. It's going to be Oliver Sloup, Blue Line Futures. Oliver, thanks for sticking around. I don't know. What are your thoughts here when it comes to the cattle and hogs?
Well, as mentioned in the first segment, it's just been tough sledding for the agricultural markets, and livestock has been no exception to that here in this week's trade. Just getting kind of beat up a little bit, and I've talked about this long enough, where there's been some concern in the cattle complex, where it feels like we've had pretty good reason for this market to continue north, especially with the way that the cash market's been trading, and the fact that we really aren't able to see the futures really close the gap with the cash market is a caution flag, in my opinion. And we've talked about the fears of slower economic growth and the fears of bird flu maybe keeping funds at bay. And I think that's probably a big factor here. So we're definitely being a little bit more proactive for people who need downside protection or want short exposure into the end of year and into early next year in that cattle market. And lean hogs, just a roller coaster, limit down in that August contract yesterday. And then we're only about a buck away from closing that gap in today's trade. So just a yo-yo trade in that market.
Yeah, it's been pretty volatile. And to your point about the cattle, it's, all you got to do is look at your friends, your producer friends over in the grains, and you think, maybe it'd be a good idea if I put some floors in underneath there and maybe do some risk reversals, because I think, and it also, I don't know, I didn't trade a ton of cattle in my career, but I do know one thing. It seems like when they pull the rug out from underneath you there, they really pull it out.
Yeah, we saw it in feeders just the other day at 11 a.m. sharp.
Exactly,
we dropped
right.
like $3 in a minute.
Yep. All right. Great stuff as usual. Have a great end of the day. Thanks very much for being on the show there, Oliver Sloup, Blue Line Futures. He's in Chicago.